American Top 40.
5 songs debut this week on American Top 40, and coming in at number 39 is the first Top 40 hit for a 4-man heavy metal band from Los Angeles called Motley Crue. With their face makeup, teased long hair, and colorful costumes, some writers have called them successors to Kiss and Alice Cooper. They've already had hit albums on the album chart, and they're a big concert draw. Now they debut at number 39 with Smokin' in the Boys' Room. Here's Motley Crue.
You ever seem to have one of those days when everyone's on your case, from your teacher all the way down to your best girlfriend?
American Top 40.
At number 19 are those excitable heavy metal rockers Motley Crue. Their lead singer, Vince Neil, was so excited about their new album, he had the title tattooed on his arm. So if you think about it, that means that when Neil's about 105 years old, his right arm will still say, "Girls, girls, girls."
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Mark Elliott, sitting in for Casey Kasem. Now, we're up to the heavy metal group that one critic called the baddest rock and roll band in the world. Whether you love them or you hate them, one thing is undeniable. The heavy metal band called Motley Crue is rock and roll through and through. Back in the early 80s, they lived a hand-to-mouth existence in the seedier parts of Hollywood, struggling for gigs at the local clubs, but walking the streets in homemade rock star finery as if they were LA's heavy metal kings. Times may have been tough, but the band loved the rock and roll lifestyle. Bass player Nicky Sixx told us, quote, "Some of our best days were when the band was only making $20 a week. We lived in a messed up apartment behind a small rock club where we played. We just walked down to the club's back door, go on stage and jam for 2 or 3 hours. Then the audience would follow us back to our apartment where we'd party till the sun came up. Those were great days." And the man who first signed them at their record company described Motley Crue as, quote, "hungry, starving street rats who didn't care what they got paid. They just wanted to play their music and live the rock life." Well, 10 years of heavy metal later, success hasn't spoiled Motley Crue. As one critic put it, they're not in it for the money. All they want is to be the baddest rock and roll band in the world. This week, that Motley Crue rocks and rolls up 3 bad notches to number 15 with Dr. Feelgood.
Hey, Shadoe, it's Vince Neil.
And Mick Mars.
Of Motley Crue.
That's right.
We're taking your Wayback Machine on an AT40 flashback.
You don't have a choice.
Only one question, dude. How do you work this thing?
Simple, oh metal masters. Just drop a coin right in here where it says drop in coin. And we're off.
American Top 40.
So now we're up to the group who just may have been the most influential and inspirational rock band of the last decade. Here's some evidence. They've been around since the 1970s and are currently in this week's countdown along with just 2 of the many different hot and heavy bands they've inspired, Bon Jovi and Motley Crue. John Bon Jovi says, "I've always wished that I could be half as cool for half as long." And singer Vince Neil of Motley Crue says, "They were my inspiration to sing." But it was Mick Mars of Motley Crue who summed it up best when he said, "If you look up shred in the dictionary, you'll find Aerosmith." And here they are, number 14 this week on American Top 40. Here's Janie's Got a Gun. I'm Shadoe Stevens, and now the mystery of Motley Crue revealed. We think of the Crue as 1980s metal monsters, and the current Crue certainly are, but they are not the first to use that name. Back in 1973, there was a band in San Diego called Motley Crue, spelled Mottleyycroo. Their drummer, a guy named Jack Valentine, who was known to play his drums upside down, told Rolling Stone magazine, "We were a local bar band, but there was one showcase club in town that only brought in L.A. bands. So we changed our name from Motley Crue to Whitehorse and claimed to be from L.A., just so that we could play there." Now, the band had a roadie who became their guitar player, a guy named Bob Deal. Jack Valentine remembers, "He was the most destitute guy I've ever met. He was just so poor. He didn't have a car, he didn't have a guitar that was worth beans, and he had one set of clothes." Well, it turned out that Bob Deal is none other than the guitarist who formed today's Motley Crue, Mick Mars. And Mick Mars, a.k.a. Bob Deal, is poor no more. He changed the spelling of the old band's name and has found mega success with a whole new Motley Crue.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Mark Elliott for Casey Kasem. These are the week's biggest hits from 40 to 1, and we're counting them down. Now, we're up to the latest hit for a band whose members spend much of their free time warning their fans against drinking and driving. And this band should know about the dangers of mixing the two. You see, the hard-living heavy metal group Motley Crue has as bad a reputation for drinking and driving as any band out there. On their albums, they brag about how the band is fueled by a combination of beer, whiskey, gin, and vodka. Or at least, they used to brag about that. That was before 3 members of Motley Crue looked death straight in the eyes. They discovered the hard way that drinking and driving don't mix. First, bass player Nicky Six smashed his car into a telephone pole at 70 miles per hour. For 6 months, he went through a series of operations, getting his shattered shoulder rebuilt and wondering if he'd ever play music again. Then, drummer Tommy Lee lost control of his car at 90 miles an hour. It rolled over 7 times, roughing Tommy up, but miraculously leaving him alive and intact. And in 1984, after a long night of drinking, singer Vince Neil took a turn too fast and plowed into an oncoming car. Vince's passenger, drummer Nicholas Razzle Dingley from the band Hanoi Rocks, was killed. The people in the other car were seriously injured. Vince was drunk at the time, just like Nicky and Tommy had been when they had their accidents. He went to jail for driving drunk and had to pay more than $2 million in damages. That's why these days the members of Motley Crue do whatever they can to convince people of the dangers of mixing cars and alcohol. They do public service spots on the radio, asking their fans not to drink and drive. And they donate over $100,000 a year to help fight alcohol abuse. Well, the members of Motley Crue say they're in the wagon these days, and they found they can rock just as well sober as they ever did drunk.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem. These are the nation's biggest hits by the world's hottest stars. Now, here's a heavy metal band that had so much trouble when they started, they had to give away copies of their first single just to get rid of them. These days, their records sell in the millions. This is Motley Crue.
Hands off the radio, this is Vince Neil.
And Mick Mars.
From Motley Crue. Shadow's special guest host this week on AT40, Richard Marx.
Coming back after this.
And now, my friends, let us enter the world of sheer fact and fancy. Yes, it's
Music.
Well, now, Motley Crue's drummer, Tommy Lee, recently got a birthday surprise gift from his wife, actress Heather Locklear. It was a guitar that was custom-made for Jimi Hendrix. The guitar is inlaid with mother of pearl and valued at a cool $30,000.
Motley Crue apparently can't get enough of each other, even after a decade of decadence. The band has now purchased a building in L.A. they say will have all the amenities they need to stay inside for weeks at a time. Private rehearsal rooms, a kitchen, sleeping quarters, a recording studio, and probably an in-house tattoo artist, probably, right?
Former Motley Crue lead singer Vince Neil has a song on his debut album called Can't Change Me, but it looks like he's having second thoughts. Vince is having a makeover. It seems in a recent magazine interview, supermodel and rock fan Cindy Crawford named Vince as one of the top 5 people she'd like to redo on her MTV show House of Style. Vince said, "Bring her on. Everybody needs a change now and then, and who'd be better to do me than Cindy? Vincent, get a grip. It's a makeover, not a make-out. Wop-a-da-bop. Party hardy, one and all as I close this week's edition of
Music.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem. Casey's Top 40 originates in Hollywood. Well, now we're up to the latest hit from Motley Crue, a heavy metal supergroup that's learned a lot about the record business in the past decade, and we do mean a lot. According to lead singer Vince Neil, 10 years ago in their early days, the group was so hungry they jumped at any chance that came along. One of those chances involved a manager who said he'd take them on if they'd sign a 10-year contract with him, giving him full power of attorney. That means he owns owned the band lock, stock, and amplifiers, and he could pay them as much or as little as he wanted. In exchange for this questionable contract, the manager offered the group $100. Believe it or not, the young and restless rockers agreed to those terms. Vince Neil says, quote, "We were so naive, and besides, I'd never seen a $100 bill before. I felt like, yeah, we made it." Well, it took the group a long time to get that contract canceled, and they learned a lot in the process, like the fact that there's more to making it than just signing a piece of paper. These days, Motley Crue is one of the giants of heavy metal and a long way from signing contracts for peanuts. Their latest contract, just signed with Elektra Records, guarantees them $25 million for the next 4 albums. Not bad for a band that was once so impressed by the sight of a $100 bill that they'd sign anything. This week, Motley Crue's enjoying the success of their 7th big hit. Here are Vince Neil, Tommy Lee, Nikki Sixx, and Mick Mars with Home Sweet Home.
Casey's